In my experience, when it comes to choosing a church giving provider, most churches don't really know what to look for, what features matter most, and what warning signs should you be looking for. So in this video, we'll tackle the 3 most important categories you should be paying attention to when you evaluate different church giving platforms.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Pro Church Tools, the show where in 10 minutes or less, you're going to get a dose of tips and tactics to help your church share the message of Jesus while we navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm your host, Alex Mills, joined as always by the boss man, Brady Shearer.
You're choosing a church giving provider, Alex, or you're evaluating the one that your church is already using. What's important to evaluate? What matters? What really doesn't? We want to talk about the 3 main categories that matter most. And likely, my suspicion is that these are things that you're probably not paying attention to. What we're not going to cover in this episode is the basics. So does this giving provider allow for recurring giving, choosing a fund, refunds, detailed reporting? Like all giving platforms can do these things.
Should be doing those,
But there are 3 categories that, in our opinions, matter the most. And the first is the software itself. When you're evaluating one church giving provider versus another, what they're going to do is they're going to tell you, hey, we have this thing that we can do, and we have this that our application can do, and it can do this and this. Which ones matter most? In my opinion, the things that you should be paying attention to above all else are the mobile giving experience and the overall giving experience for the user. Okay, don't worry about promises of giving increases. Don't worry about the things that necessarily have to do with making your life easy as a staff or a pastor. How easy is it, and how smooth, peaceful of an experience is it for a giver, your church, to give using this platform? The reason this is important is because we know which methods of giving donors worldwide, Christian, North America, prefer. More than 50% prefer to give online via debit or credit card. And that might not sound like a lot. It is the majority. It's also 5 times more preferred than any other option around. And so when you're evaluating, this giving provider has an app, and this one has text giving. Well, only 1% people prefer to give through text. Only 4% prefer to give through apps. 56% on average prefer to give online and through, mobile, if it's on your website. That's what you should be paying attention to most. Think about something like Apple Pay. So smooth,
seamless,
so amazing. That's how good your mobile giving experience should be.
I find myself, honestly, and this is a little bit shameful to admit, I think I find myself buying more things online because of how easy it is to pay with Apple Pay. If I'm like on the fence on a product and I see the Apple Pay logo, it's like, I can pay for this with my watch right now. Sold. Like it's so seamless. It's just so effortless for me. I find myself like buying more things than I probably should.
Just to give a behind the scenes a bit on this, the reason that almost every church giving provider now has an app as a joint feature that they can offer you is because one of the major church giving providers several years ago acquired an app company. So that they could say, we will give you an app when you join us, and no one else will do that. That's a nice little bonus feature. It shouldn't be one of the things that you are using to quantify, is this the right giving provider for me? That's an extraneous feature that is really just a nice little bonus, and a lot of other giving companies kind of followed suit and said, well, now we got to buy our own app company. Again, do not use that as one of your criteria to choose from. And if you're looking for more examples of this, think about Charity Water. Charity Water, one of the biggest, best charities we can all look up to. Do they offer text giving? No. Why? Because their website is amazing. Their giving experience online on their website works amazing on mobile. It works amazing on desktop. And they don't need these kind of gimmick features that used to be important. But your giving experience should be a lot better than a text giving experience. If it's not, then maybe that's not the right giving provider for you. Next up, after the software, is the mission. Who are the people behind your product? You might not be thinking about this very often, but it has become increasingly important, especially in the last couple of years. I'm going to read a review here. This review is publicly available from a company called Glassdoor. Now, Glassdoor is an online platform that basically allows you as an employer or you as an employee to rate your company. It's kind of like Rate My Teachers for companies.
RateMyDoctor.com.
All of this stuff is publicly available. Here's what the review says. You don't want to work here. It will harm your soul.
Oh, no.
Take any reviews with a grain of salt. But if you're genuinely interested, scroll through and you'll see a pattern of fake everything's wonderful reviews to counter genuine ones. There is a history from the CEO of making and asking his team to make it because they are investors first with skin in the game and running the company in an ethical way for customers and employees. Well, that comes a distant second. If you're looking for somewhere that you can work in service of your faith or amongst others of faith, there are many great options. If you just need a paycheck, you can do it without actively harming churches, ministries, and nonprofits. They all deserve better than what this organization provides.
Well, if that wasn't dark enough, let me read another review from the same.
That could just be one.
Right, same source, but not the same reviewer. This review says, I could write a book with everything wrong with this company. Seriously, just read all the reviews, people. I'd bet an entire small paycheck from them that the few positive reviews on this site were purposely constructed by management to polish this giant turd, is what it says here. I'm just reading what it says. As soon as humanly possible, I'm leaving. I've never worked with so many unprofessional, unqualified people.
I have more reviews here. We're not going to read all of them. The overall star rating for this company is 2.6 of 5.
Out of 5, so it's not 2.6 out of 2.7?
That's correct.
Okay.
Only 39% of people that work here would recommend it to a friend. 35% approve of the CEO. This is all publicly available. We're not trying to purposely hate on a company. What company is this? It's called Ministry Brands. And they are a collection of dozens of different church companies, church software that they have purchased in the last couple of years. When it comes to the giving platforms under this umbrella, some that are included: Easy Tithe, Clover Sites, which includes Clover Give, The Rocket Company, Ecclesia 360, which includes their giving component, Simple Give, eGive, which is apparently a different platform, Giving Kiosk, MoGive, Kindred, and Share Faith. All working under this guise. Why is this important to you as a church? Might be terrible for them. And sure, the employees say that the churches that are using these platforms are getting hurt, but why does it matter to you? Well, Ministry Brands is up for sale right now for what's expected to be a sale price of about $1.5 billion. What's happened is a bunch of money has been injected into the church space. This umbrella company has bought up a ton of companies that were willing to sell, and now they are selling their giant umbrella company for a massive profit. All the while burning the customers and employees of these smaller companies. It's important to know who is running your platform, because if you don't know who, you can get burned like many of these customers have. And I'm using all publicly available reviews purposely because I don't want this to come off as me sharing my opinion, but I know people that have worked for these companies and work currently, and churches and customers for these companies. And everything that has been said publicly here, I have heard privately as well.
Well, and this should matter to your church, because whether it's your giving platform that you're going to partner with, or your website provider, or any peripheral company that you partner with to serve your church, you have to consider that like as a partner in ministry, right? And if they don't, if that company and the people who are running that company and working for that company don't share your same values, your same mission as a church, there's going to be some disconnect there. And as a pastor, somebody who makes these decisions in a small local church, we're very intentional about who we work with, even when it comes to simple things like a giving provider or a website provider. Who are these people that we're partnering with? Because we have a mission and we want them to be on the same page of that mission as well.
The final category, we're saving the most important for last. Now, most church giving companies don't want to talk about this because they have a huge vested interest in not talking about it, and that is the fees. This should be the absolute most important factor when you're making a decision to choose a church giving company, because every time someone gives to your church digitally, you're going to expect to pay between 2 to 5% of that overall gift away. You will not get to keep it to the fees. Now, there are two different entities that are taking these fees. One of them is the processor. This is not your church giving company, and this can be a bit hard to understand, so I'll try to be as simple with my explanation as possible. The giving processor, the gift processor, there are only a few of those that exist. Example, Stripe is one of them. And your giving company will essentially build their software on top of the giving processor's software. They're going to take the fee no matter what. It's usually about 2%. But on top of that, there's this thing known as Rev Share. Every single giving company I know of operates with this strategy. Rev Share means that essentially, if someone gives $100 to your church, 2 of those dollars will go to the processor, not your church giving company. The processor, it's mandatory for security and compliance. But an extra 1%, the giving company themselves, they'll keep for themselves. They'll skim it off the top. It's called Rev Share. And if you think about it another way, here's a good analogy. 10 years ago, let's say this digital giving, it's not really a thing in churches yet. It's just starting to become a thing. At that point, we are handing baskets down the pews, down the rows, and we're putting our checks, and we're putting our cash in those things. Now, where did you buy those baskets?
I bought it at williamsbasket.com.
Okay, williamsbasket.com. That's where you bought it. Now, williamsbasket.com has an interesting little kind of requirement if you're going to use their baskets. Every time someone gives $100 to your church, you have to give $1 to Williams Baskets.
But I thought I already paid for the basket.
Yes, you paid to use it.
Right.
There was an upfront fee, but you also need to pay $1
of every
$100 to Williams Baskets.
That doesn't feel right.
You can use a hat. Nope. The hat company does the same thing. They're going to take $1 too. But what if we use like buckets from Home Depot? Well, Home Depot's going to take $1 every single time.
Right, it's unavoidable.
All church companies do this. And you might be thinking, okay, but if all of them do it, then what's the problem? How does this really matter? Well, again, using only publicly available data, this comes from PushPay's 2019 Interim Investor Report. You can find this online. The average monthly revenue that PushPay earns from a church, so the average church uses PushPay, one of the biggest church giving providers, pays them $1,060 per month. Now, that's not what it costs to use PushPay each month, but it is what it costs when you take into account their Rev Share, skimming a bit off the top of every single gift that you give. They estimate, based on their lifetime value for a customer, that the average church that uses PushPay will pay them $108,000 in the lifetime that you use their software. So you can think about that for a moment. More than $100,000 of your giving budget taken away from Rev Share fees that you lose because you're using digital giving.
And the worst part is the way it's designed is that, and to me, that is it's skimmed off the gift, right? And so sure, a lot of these giving companies have an option to cover the fees, but it's not built right into it. And so if I give $100 and I choose not to cover the fees, my church is only going to get $98. And so they don't even get everything that I gave. And so that money is being taken right off of the gift. And that's what feels a little bit dirty about this to me.
And again, part of that has to go to the processor.
Of course.
I know we're going long here, but we want to make sure that everyone understands this is important. Part of it goes to the processor, security, compliance. Digital giving needs to be safe for the giver. But the part that most churches don't recognize is that once that 2% is taken, or whatever percent that may be around there, there's an extra bit that church giving company is keeping for themselves. And that's the part that most people don't recognize. And as those numbers would illustrate, they can be a huge killer. So again, this is the standard as it is right now. This is what is expected. This is how everything works. So when you're choosing a giving provider, you want the lowest possible fees that you can possibly get. And ask about Rev Share. Ask about, hey, are you taking some for yourself? Is there an option just to pay monthly where you don't take any of my gift? I don't know. I don't know if that's an option, but ask about it. Most church giving companies don't talk about it publicly, but I think if you ask them in a sales call or in a chat, they would be willing to talk about it. So those three categories, one more time: the software, the mission, most importantly, the fees. The three categories you need to consider when you're choosing your next church giving provider or evaluating the one that you currently have. And that'll do it for this episode of Pro Church Tools. We'll see you next time. We did it! Yay! We did it! Hey, but have you done it? As in subscribe.
And then once you like this video, another round of applause for you.
Because you did it!